Well, more trouble for Qantas this week as a 24-hour pilot strike has caused the cancellation of 29 Qantas services set to depart from Perth Airport for FIFO workers. Pilots from the Network Aviation and Australian Federation of Air Pilots are demanding Qantas bump their pay by 50%. Joining me now is Neil Hansford, Chairman at the Strategic Aviation Solutions. What is going on here? I mean, obviously, things go from bad to worse for Qantas at the moment, but the suggestion here is some of these pilots are actually being paid below award wages. Is that right?
That's the suggestion, but this is a classic case of levels of Qantas have been mismanaging this. This dispute's been going on pretty much since Qantas bought Network Aviation to give them some influence over the fly-in, fly-out. And they've never addressed the basic issue of getting the salary levels of the Network Aviation people with some parity on their Jetstar pilots, their Qantas Express pilots, Qantas Link. They've all hoped it was going to go away. Now, that might have been the method of the previous chief executive, but this is not going to go away. What people forget, Callum, is when somebody qualifies to be a commercial pilot, he has to pay for his training himself, and he may well have invested $150,000 to try having self-trained in the commercial academies. Then he starts work on $45,000 to $50,000 a year. Now, I don't know any other employment group that goes through that sort of ratios of having to invest the money yourself, HEX loans, the Bank of Dad and everybody else, and then goes out and earns what I say is a derisory $45,000 to $50,000 as a first officer.
Well, you can go and earn that working in a supermarket for certainly a lot less qualification. And I mean, look, I'm not typically one to sit here and hooray the unions, but, we're talking about a company here in Qantas that just delivered a record profit, has been giving us airfares that are through the roof, that collected some $2.3 billion in JobKeeper and other subsidies during COVID, that illegally sacked nearly 2,000 workers, and you're telling me that they can't find the money to bump these people up to the pay they ought to be on? It just seems like willful mismanagement and mistreatment of their workers.
That's exactly the point. And the worst thing is the Qantas chairman, Goyder, comes from Western Australia. He knows the West Australian environment. He knows the importance of fly-in, fly-out. And yet it's all been ticking on his watch. Although Alan Joyce can be blamed for it, was going on in Goyder's watch. And we continue to have them supporting that this man should be kept on as the chairman of Qantas in such something as so basic as paying your people appropriately, because these people invested their money to get qualified to get a job.
It just seems ridiculous. Now, the Prime Minister has rejected calls today for Transport Minister Catherine King to front the Qatar Airways inquiry. He's called it a political stunt, as King, of course, stands by her decision to block the airline's bid for extra flights. She insisted that she did it out of the national interest. I mean, why should she avoid having to stand in front of this inquiry? I mean, we saw Goyder, we saw the new boss, we saw the lawyer last week who was irked that he was going to miss his flight back to Sydney. They all had to face from Qantas the music last week, and rightly so. This whole thing was set up ostensibly because of this decision that was made about Qatar. Why should the Transport Minister avoid having to make an appearance?
There's no reason why she should, and I think it's an indication of her level of or low level of competence and knowledge of the aviation industry, and they don't want to expose her to the Liberals that are National Party members that are on that Senate inquiry, because they know that she's going to come out of there tattered and torn, and then Albanese's got to do something about it. I don't defend the Qatar situation, because there's about 10 other airlines that could come and provide capacity that Qatar's offering, and we all forget the Qatar case where Australian women were mistreated on the tarmac. by Qatar Airways. But we're happy to let that go away.
Yeah, indeed. The whole thing around this decision just seems to be a little odd. And if the minister can't come and stand before a committee and talk about it, why are you the minister, would be my question. Neil Hansford, thank you for joining me.